Thank you very much for the opportunity. Talking on behalf of Lindor, my name is Bastiaan Soeterman. I'm a mechanical engineer by training, and I've been involved with Lindor since 2006. And with FPT and India 2012. Actually, that was the first time that I visited India. And since then, besides last year, unfortunately, I think I've been frequenting at least twice to 4 times a year in India, and I really love it. Lindor, founded in 1963 in Dordrecht, a smallish town in the Netherlands, one of the oldest cities. And we built our first gentle touch mixer in 1989. This was actually for a local company making instant drinks, like instant cocoa and instant coffee drinks for vending machines. And they found out that the traditional ribbon blenders, they would create too much dust and blocking the vending machines. So they were looking for a different solution for a machine that actually would blend very well and very quickly without breaking up the product and creating dust. Since then, we supplied about 12 mixers to them, and they're still running with it. This is more than 30 years ago. And we've, for other purposes and customers, installed more than 500 mixers in the meantime worldwide. We do about 20 to 30 mixers a year. We are a small group with 70 employees, of which 25 are solely focused on the Lindor gentle touch processing technology. And the other people are in England, and they are working on kneaders and other types of mixing equipment. We have a worldwide support network and test centers in Netherlands, England, Poland, Singapore, Japan, and of course in India, in Ahmedabad, where we have a full-sized industrial mixer setup, a 500-liter batch, and also a very small mixer for very small tests. What we do is we cater to the food, chemical, polymers, and pharma business. And actually, we have supplied to all of these industries in India as well. We do flavoring, mixing, of course, liquid dosing like impregnation, drying, vacuum drying, hot air drying, dry air drying, vacuum coating. We make mixers from very small, 10 liters, so call that a 1 to 3 kilo batch, to 25,000 liters, which is like a 15-ton batch. We do continuous mixing and batch mixing. We have jacketed drums, airflow, etc. This is a typical, quite large mixer, I must say, 7,000 liter batch, just to give you an impression of how it works. It's a rotating drum, so the entire drum rotates. There are no moving parts inside, the product in this case is entered through the standing pipe on the right-hand side and is leaving the mixer after the batch on the left-hand side. So, now to the presentation that I prepared specifically for this webinar. Integrity is key. Gentle mixing and flavoring of tea, a webinar for India and surrounding countries like Sri Lanka, Bangladesh, and Nepal. Tea and herbal teas, it's one of our key points in doing business. More than 50% of all our mixers installed worldwide are for this purpose alone. Sizing ranging from 70-liter batch to 12,000 liters of batch. That's the biggest machine we've ever installed. It's located in Poland, tea company there. And we install them, of course, in Europe, of course, in India. In India, we've now installed around 25 mixers, not all for tea. I think it's about 8 mixers for tea, so about 1/3. Canada, Russia, Dubai, Indonesia, well, all over the world. Talking about big batches, normally a tea mixer, the most sizes are like 1,000 liter, 1,500 liters, 2,000 liters. And then 4,000 liters is also a popular site. One mixer where they ordered a 12,000 liter mixer that accounts to their bulk density to about 3.6 tons per batch, which is equivalent to 1.8 million tea bags if you have these single serve tea bags. In 24 hours, if you run around the clock, that would equate to 130 million tea bags in 24 hours. So in a week's time, you nearly can give the entire nation of India a cup of tea. So we have our technology in which we can meet a number of challenges that are facing the industry, and specifically the tea industry. And I just want to share with you a simulation that is made for us. And I can talk to you through it. So what you see on the right-hand side, the standing pipe, you see the purple powder coming in, or particles, and the yellow now coming in, and the two are mixed through this rotation effect. And after the batch, so this is done very shortly just to show you, the actual product is leaving on the left side the mixer. The rotating drum is actually pumping out, if you will, the particles. And that results, because everything is always participating at all times, that results in a discharge rate of well over 99.9%. So typically less than a handful or less than 100 grams of product is left behind in the drum. What you also see in this mixer is the liquid injection nozzle or device, a swan neck we call it, an armature. So there's a device in here which is the nozzle, and that can be single phase or dual phase. If you have thicker flavors, a dual phase, and through that you can spray in on the tea leaves. Doing many trials with customers, having supported many installations with tea packers, several themes have emerged, and I've made a selection for you to discuss these. So point one, long leaves, entangling and breaking. You have many, as you know much better than we do, many different types of teas. Some are kind of easy to process, and some of these types are harder to process. And one of them, or some of these, they're like needles, long needles of tea, and they can be pretty difficult to do. The second one is to the tea, sometimes other components are added, like blended teas, mixed teas with flower petals or other herbal ingredients, which may be difficult to mix. Then there's the whole subject of dust generation and what to do with dust, which is the fourth topic, venting and dust extraction. Then flavouring, how to do that best. Sixth thing is, after the whole thing, how do you properly clean, and how do you deal with allergens? Allergens is a topic that more and more in our society is popping up and becoming an issue. And then last but not least, how about productivity? So the first topic, long leaves, entangling and breaking. So what you see here on this picture is a typical green tea, but these leaves, they are like needles, as long as pine tree needles nearly. And what we found out, that as long as you have a slower pace of the drum, and the drum is rotating typically between 2 and 9 RPM. If you have a slow feed, then and you rotate it at about 6 RPM, 7 RPM, actually the tea, even these tea leaves, they mix pretty well and have a very nearly negligent breakage rate. If you have combinations of tea, the most fragile tea you want to add at the last moment, so that it has the least mixing time and the least exposure to the rotation forces. Although there are very few forces, because the actual mixing is done by, as you saw in the simulation, by gravity. There are no shear forces involved. That's one of the big advantages of this technology. So the second theme is what to do with difficult, fragile components. So what you see here is certain flower petals or herbs. And similar to the previous theme is they can be mixed very nicely, very homogeneously. Do it a little bit gentle and do the most difficult parts at the end. And certainly if you have parts that tend to segregate or demix even, use a very low time that you put them in the mix. So prepare your base mix, put in the difficult component last, let it mix for maybe 10 or 20 seconds and discharge immediately. It then has enough time to come through the mix, and it will not give you any problems in breakage or segregation. The third one is dust generation, and you can have this with leaves, with broken tea, fannings. Again, because the lack of the shear forces in this mixer, the generation, the actual breakage and generation of tea is very, very low, especially if you stick to the normal mixing times. The normal mixing time for just dry tea, besides flavoring, just dry mixing of tea, is about 2 to 3 minutes typically. Sometimes due to operational reasons, you want to continue to keep it in motion. Then you slow down the rotation of the drum to give it as little, and then you can rotate for 10, 20 or even longer minutes. And still the amount of dust generated is very, very low or negligent. But the more you can avoid it, the better, of course. What is important, and in the next slide will show you, is the proper venting, because although the mixing system itself will not generate the dust, the tea will come in with a certain amount of dust due to previous operations or just because it is there. So how to deal with dust and how to deal with venting, because when you have tea coming from a big bag, a silo, a hopper, and you feed it in by gravity into the mixer, the tea is going to replace the air in the mixer, and that air has to go somewhere. So we've made a special flange, a special connection for that, and you have to connect a pipe or a hose to that and be able to let that air freely escape. If that is blocked or that's not properly installed, actually the tea can be blocked while coming in because the air is trying to push it out because the air cannot go anywhere. So it's important to make the right arrangement, and what is a nice solution is to connect the venting connection on the mixer, on the inlet of the mixer, back into the feeding hopper, so that the air that's sucked in due to the dropping down of the tea leaves is actually coming in from the mixer again. So then you can create a closed system. You can also install a dust extraction system, which has a sucking effect, but you have to be careful not to suck too hard, because then you will even suck tea with it again, and that can clog up your filters. So too strong suction is not good. You can carry away too much product. Then during mixing and during flavoring, you want the mixer to be able to breathe. So there should be an open air connection, preferably back to the hopper, for instance. And also, if you inject liquid, that is also replacing air, even if it's not as much as with the entering of the tea. You need to make sure that you can have air being able to flow out with the introduction of the liquid that you spray on. And then the third one is during discharge. So when your batch is ready, after 3 minutes, 5 minutes, you want to discharge like I showed you in the simulation, but the leaves are leaving the mixing drum and air needs to go back in. So you have to make sure that the air can freely move in so that the tea can easily leave the mixer, so you have a short discharge time. Discharge time is typically 1 or 2 minutes, 3 minutes maybe. And then some practical things and examples of things that we've noticed. And you learn by doing it and by practice, and we've made our mistakes, and we've had our solutions that worked and that didn't work. And would like to share a little bit of that with you. So what you see here on the left-hand side with the blue circle, you see one of these venting connections with a sock over it, which is like a filter sock. It's a very simple solution there, and it can work well unless the filter sock is not properly attached or is even clogged, and then it's really obstructed and the air cannot flow out, and that had in this case a result that the tea would not flow in properly, and it would take minutes and minutes and minutes before the tea could actually fully enter the mixing drum. It was so slow in evacuating the air. Because we could not attach any other system from the customer to that connection point, they didn't want to have anything else there. What we did is we introduced some snorkels, we call them, to catch the air and to let it flow out through another port, which was then later connected to their extraction system. To give you an example, this is how strong the air can be during charging of the mixer with tea. This was actually a tea installation in Germany. Watch these two holes. I opened them. Normally these are plugged, and they are there to place a liquid injection system or a sip system or instrumentation. But if it's not there, it's plugged. I opened them to see if this venting was an issue. So sorry. Watch along these arrows, and you see actually the air flowing out with force. It would flow out. You can also see the dust coming along with it because of the strong airflow and the high speed that carries dust with it then. And I was standing making the film, the movie, the video with a white shirt on, and I can promise you that the shirt was not white anymore after making this video. Then we move on to the next topic, and that is flavoring. And if you want to flavor it, you want to have it homogeneous. When you have some tea in your hands or put it in a teapot, you want it to have a nice and even flavor and aroma, and no lumps and no spots of liquid or anything like that. You can flavor tea in two ways, apart from having the flavorful tea or other ingredients with their own flavors. You can add to that either liquids and or a granulate. And sometimes it's done both, sometimes it's one or the other. With liquids, the characteristic is that it can offer a taste and it can offer a fragrance. So if you then open the tea or even with the tea bag, before you consume the tea, you can already smell it. With the granulate, you have much less of the fragrance, but the taste you have, you certainly have. The taste is actually encapsulated in these granulates, and when the capsules, these granules, they hit the hot water, the taste opens up. And you can do also a combination of both. Both can be done in our mixers, of course. To avoid lump creation, which is not difficult at all, to avoid that, make sure that you have a right speed of the mixer, not too slow, and a nice fine mist of a spray that can be fine-tuned, and that's only spraying on the tea itself and not on the metal parts in the mixer. That's a matter of alignment and adjustment that we typically do for our customers, so you get an excellent result. And then cleaning and allergens, different ways of cleaning, just light cleaning between batches. If you schedule your tea, I'm sure you know that it's easier to first schedule the light flavors and the light teas and go stronger and stronger, so that you, at the end then of that campaign, you can clean it. And then you can dry clean or you can wet clean. Dry cleaning, you use brush, industrial vacuum cleaner, and we can make a port in the drum where you connect a vacuum hose so that you can wipe or brush the tea in that direction and it's actually sucked out, and you can finish it with wet wipes. Depends also if you use flavoring, liquid flavoring, then more cleaning is maybe required. Wet cleaning even, you can do it manually with warm water and detergent. 3 stages, pre-rinsing, then a detergent clean, and afterwards post-rinsing. Or we can equip the mixer with a complete automated CIP system with spray balls in the drum, in the inlet, in the outlet, with a hot air or dry air drying unit on it. You can have an automated cycle and have the whole thing cleaned and dried within 25 minutes. So productivity-wise, that is can be a very good solution. Talking about productivity, our mixers with our customers, they do up to 8 batches per hour. It depends also a little bit on the size of the machine. 8 batches per hour can be done by a 500 liter, 1000 liter, 1500 liter mixer. If they become bigger, then the number of batches can go down a little bit. Depends also on the material handling automation before it, how fast you can feed, and how fast you can take away the product that's discharged, of course. Feeding typically goes to the tune of 1000 to 1500 liter per minute maximum. The mixing is typically 2 to 5 minutes. Liquid dosing can add 1 to 3 minutes to that mixing time. Discharge is typically 500 to 1,000 liter per minute. So the mixer can be very, very productive, but it obviously also depends in what kind of line it is built in. And with ASO can make highly efficient material handling systems. Productivity can be very, very effective and fast. High. So some examples of installations. This is a 3D impression of a 3,000 liter mixer with on top the entering, the tipping cabinet for a product, then the mixing, and then the product goes down to a packaging unit or a big bag filling device. This is an actual tea mixer in Europe. It's I can say it because we've published a small article on it. It's a Lipton installation where the black tea is mixed for tea bags, fannings. It's a 4,000 liter mixer with a dual discharge for dual weight big bags. And that's been operating, I think, for 10 to 15 years now. Another one, old mixer, probably 20 years old mixer, 2,000 liter mixer for a known supplier in France of herbal teas. And that's a very loyal customer as well. This is more recently an installation for herbs and tea in Turkey, 2,000 liter mixer. They recently ordered their second one. There is the mixer, in case you've missed it. And these are some examples of tea mixers, 1,000 and 2,000 liter in a mixing company in India. So these are just some examples. How long do our mixers last? I was talking to a customer actually in America, and he was interested in a new mixer. We had supplied him 2 mixers 20 years ago in 2000, 2001. And I was talking about India and doing this webinar with him. We had a friendly talk, and I said, yeah, it's interesting because we even can sell mixers in India. Well, we are really much more expensive. I wouldn't say we are expensive, but our mixers are more costly than some of the local competition. And he replied simply with, yeah, no wonder, because your mixers, they last 30 years. So it's an easy equation. So I hadn't thought of it like that, but that was his comment. Our mixers last a long time. They're simple machines, they're easy to maintain, and yeah, they don't wear out really. It was all about the tea. The tea quality depends on the leaf quality that you have, your recipes, and of course also on your process quality. So that is what I wanted to share with you. If you have good equipment, a good process, then it all comes down to the quality of the tea that you put in, and you can generate a beautiful cup of tea, which I'm actually enjoying as we speak. Thank you very much.
Thank you, Bastian. The assembly of Lindor blender at the state-of-art plant in Ahmedabad is a good development. So the participants, the customers will be able to experience the Indo-European assembled machine. Yeah. So we have a couple of questions from the participants. The first question: how empty will be the mixture after discharge? That means, what is the residue that will be remaining once the blending cycle is over and you discharge the recipe from the blender?
Yeah, my microphone is open again. The residue after emptying, it's very little. So some tea dust can hang onto the walls. You may find a rare leaf, but it's far less than a handful. You know, we've measured it sometimes at the trials, and we end up with 30 grams or 50 grams or even less. Depends a little bit on the product. If you have wet liquid injection, it can become a little bit sticky. You may have a little bit more tea, but it's still it's extremely low. So call it less than 100 grams.
Thank you, Bastien. I hope this answers the question from one of the participants who has raised a question on the yield output of the machine. I think the presentation and the answer from Bastien should answer the question. So we have the second question. How many batches per hour can be performed in case of liquid flavoring?
With liquid flavoring, it really depends on the amount of liquid that you add, and with that, the nozzles that you choose. You typically a liquid system has one nozzle, but if you have higher amounts of liquid flavor, you can also choose to put two nozzles in, the amount of flavor is ranging from 1 to 2%, but sometimes up to 10%. And 10% that becomes a sizable amount of liquid, so then it lasts a little bit longer. But as I've indicated in one of my slides, if you have a normal mixing time of about 2, 3, 4 minutes of dry mixing without flavoring, depending on the amount of flavor you want to add to that time, you add 1 to 3, 4 minutes. So in effect, you can do typically easily 4 batches per hour. If you have the right setup and the right productivity around the mixer, of course. If you have very high degrees of liquid, you may go to about 3 batches per hour, something like that.
Thank you, Bastien. We have one interesting question. I will try to rephrase it if I have understood the question correctly. Can the Lindor blender be used as a vacuum drying system?
As a vacuum drying system for drying tea, that would be probably. Well, we make vacuum dryers, but that means that our mixer really needs to be equipped for that. So you cannot just buy a Lindor tea mixer and later on decide, okay, I'm going to vacuum dry with it, because you need to have special seals, you need to have a vacuum pump, the correct connections and everything, the construction of the mixer. But if you have that, then it certainly would be possible. Yeah.
I thank you once again to all the participants for being part of this webinar. Thank you and namaste.